The only thing I want to accomplish when I'm visiting with a person, or shoot, I put on private lender luncheons and had 20 people, feed them lunch and teach them about private money. The only thing I'm looking to accomplish is to give them value and leave them more knowledgeable than when we started the conversation.
If you're a real estate investor and are wondering how to raise and leverage private money to make more profit on every deal, then you're in the right place. On Raising Private Money, we'll speak with new and seasoned investors to dissect their deals and extract the best tips and strategies to help you get the money, because the money comes first. Now here's your host, Jay Connor.
Welcome back to the Commercial Real Estate Unfiltered podcast. And today we're going to be talking about private money, hard lending, and things that a lot of people don't talk about. So today I've got a special guest with us, Jay Connor. He is nationally renowned as a real estate investor, author, and host of the Raising Private Money show. Frustrated by the constraints of traditional bank financing, Jay has developed his signature Where to Get Money Now system, securing substantial private funding in record time, which propelled his success in real estate investing. He has since rehabilitated over 400 homes, often achieving average profits around $60,000 per deal, making him a trusted authority in creative financing techniques. Beyond his investing accomplishments, Jay is also a celebrated mentor and educator, guiding investors across North America to build businesses that function like an automatic transmission machine through private lending and strategic systems. Wow, that's a lot, Jay. I'm so happy to have you here on the show.
Caleb, thank you so much for inviting me to come along and talk about my favorite topic that I'm so passionate about, that being private money, private lending for real estate. And the reason I'm so excited about it and so passionate about it is because this strategy, this tool of using private money for your funding, has had more of an impact on our real estate investing business. We've been investing in real estate since 2003 full time. And I started using private money in 2009, 6 years after I was in the business. And since 2009, Caleb, I have never missed out on a real estate deal that I wanted to do for lack of funding. Never missed out. And you may have some listeners here that are tuning in that knows what it feels like to miss out on a real estate deal because they don't have the funding or they can't move fast. With private money, I can close a deal in less than 7 days from the time we negotiate on it. So it's just, there's over 20 benefits to using private money for your funding versus traditional financing.
Yeah, and I think this is a topic that not many people talk about because I feel taboo, at least in my experience. People are afraid to talk about it because you hear the horror stories about hard money lending and private funds and things not working out. And I'm excited to dive into what were some of the challenges you saw with traditional lending and banking that kind of pushed you with some of those pain points that pushed you into the private lending sector.
I'm glad you brought up the phrase hard money, because a lot of people, real estate investors, are confused and they think hard money is synonymous with private money, and it's not.
Right.
Private money, hard money, two completely different things. Hard money is typically a broker of money, the hard money lender, typically a broker of money that raises money from individuals, private lenders, private investors, and those private lenders invest in the hard money lender's fund. And then the hard money lender then in turn, it's institutional money. They then in turn loan it out to real estate investors, obviously charging a higher rate of interest than they pay their investors. And so a private lender, just to be clear, is a human being, an individual that lends money to us real estate investors, either from their investment capital and or their retirement funds. They got a lot of private lenders using their 401ks and money in the stock market. That's retirement funds. And it's a one-on-one transaction between you, the borrower, and the lender. There's no broker in the middle. That's why there's no origination fees, because there's no originator. There's no broker. So I just want to be clear for everyone to understand, what are we talking about when we're talking private money. We're not
Yes.
talking hard money in this world. So what was it that drove me over to using private money versus banks and mortgage companies? The best way I can answer that is through a short story as to
Yeah.
what drove me to find private money. As I said, for the first 6 years, I relied on local banks, mortgage companies. That's all I knew to do, traditional lending for my real estate deals. And so in January of 2009, I was sitting here at my desk and I had two houses under contract to purchase for investment properties. And I had been using the same banker, the same line of credit for those first 6 years, and had done a lot of deals. His name was Steve. We had a great business relationship. So I called him up. Caleb, I thought I still had a line of credit at the bank when I put those two houses under contract. So I called up Steve. I told him about my two deals, and I learned very quickly, right over the phone, that my line of credit had been closed with no notice to me.
Wow.
And I said, Steve, what in the world are you telling me? My line of credit's closed. We've done a ton of deals. I got a great credit score. I've never been late on my
Yeah.
payments. I said, what's going on? And Steve said, Jay, don't you know there's a global financial crisis going on right now? I said, no, Steve, but you just gave me a financial crisis.
Yeah.
I don't have a way to fund these two deals. And so I hung up the phone and I sat here at my desk, Caleb. I asked myself a very important question.
Mm.
And you know, the power's in asking the right questions. You can't get
Yes.
the right answers or solutions unless you ask the right questions.
Agreed.
I asked myself this question, and by the way, this question will help fix any problem anybody's got going on. I don't care if
I'm
it's
ready.
financial, career, relationships, health, money, doesn't matter. And so here's the question I asked myself. I said, Jay, who, there's the key right there, not how, but who do you know that can help fix your problem?
Yeah.
And when I asked myself that question, I immediately thought of Jeff Blankenship. Now, Jeff's a good friend. We know him through a cappella gospel singing events and known him for years, him and his wife. And Jeff, at that time in 2009, he was investing in single family houses up in Greensboro, North Carolina.
Okay.
So I thought to myself, maybe Jeff has got some alternative ideas on financing that I don't know about.
Yeah.
I called up Jeff. I told him what had just happened. And Jeff says, Jay, welcome to the club. I said, I'm not sure I want to be a member of your club, but what club are you talking about? He said, my bank cut me off last week. I lost my line of credit.
Wow.
I said, Jeff, how are you going to fund your deals? He said, have you ever heard of private money? I said, no. He said, have you ever heard of self-directed IRA companies or third-party custodians that the IRS has approved that allows people to take their current retirement funds, move them over to the self-directed IRA company with no tax effects, no penalties, and then they can loan that money out to us. We'll pay them a high rate of return safely and securely, and the interest we pay them will be either tax-free or tax-deferred. I said, Jeff, you're talking Greek to me. I have no idea what you are talking about. I said, what is private money?
Yeah.
He said, I'm not exactly sure. He says, but there's this guy down in Jacksonville, Florida, by the name of Ron LeGrand. I said, who's Ron LeGrand? He said, well, I'm not so sure about that either. He says, but Ron says we can get a lot of private money really fast for our real estate deals. I said, okay. So Jeff and I went to that seminar to learn about private money. And oh boy, Caleb, did I learn about private money. I came back home and using what I had learned, the first thing I did was I put together my opportunity that I was going to offer, first of all, through my own network, my own connections, people I go to church with, people in the Rotary Club, etc. And I didn't ask for any money. I didn't pitch any deals. I've yet to pitch a deal. I got 47 private lenders. I've never pitched a deal, and I get all my deals funded in less than 7 days. I'll explain how that works as we get into it. But I was able to raise and attract, without asking for any money, $2,150,000 in new funding available without asking, begging, chasing, persuading, or whatever. And people say, Jay, how do you get all that money? And you didn't ask for money. And here's the secret. It's called the mindset. What did I do? I put on my teacher hat.
Yeah.
My teacher hat says private money teacher. And what I went about doing is just sharing with people what private money is, how they can earn high rates of return safely and securely, and the interest rate that I pay on these deals and et cetera. And a big part of the secret sauce is desperation has a smell to it. And the worst time to be raising private money is when you need it
Yeah.
for a deal.
Yeah.
People can sense that. It makes them run away. So that's a really important mindset. Separate the conversations between offering the opportunity. How much interest rate are you going to pay? How are they protected? How can they get their money back in case of an emergency, et cetera? And you're just sharing that opportunity. They tell you how much they want to invest. Is it liquid? Is it investment capital? Is it all the above? And then I tell them I'll put your money to work for you as soon as I can. And then in the show here, I'll share with you and your audience what I call the script for the good news phone call.
Okay.
I get 100% of my deals funded without ever pitching a deal. And so that separation of not being desperate and sharing the opportunity and then having a deal for them to fund in a week or 2 weeks or a month or whatever, that's critical because I got 47 private lenders. None of them had ever heard of private money. They'd never heard of private money, private lending. They'd never heard of how to use self-directed IRAs with their retirement funds. So this was all new. So see, you're positioning yourself as an expert.
Yeah.
And, my intent, the only thing I want to accomplish when I'm visiting with a person or shoot, I put on private lender luncheons and had 20 people, feed them lunch and teach them about private money. The only thing I'm looking to accomplish is to give them value and leave them more knowledgeable than when we started the conversation.
Yeah.
And if it's a fit for them, it's a fit for them. It's not a fit for them, it's not a fit for them because, there's 8 billion people on the planet and there's more money than there are deals.
Yeah.
There's more money than there are deals. So that mindset and having a servant's heart and just sharing with people how they can earn high rates of return safely and securely in a way they never heard of.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
That's a value add. And I think that's what we're here to do. And I like that mindset of service, that it's not about the money, it's not about the deal. And so beyond setting up this opportunity and communicating that opportunity, what are some ways that investors can attract and structure private capital more effectively?
Sure. It depends on how you're going to use private money. So private money can serve you as the borrower in any asset class of real estate. Single family houses, commercial, as your podcast is about, commercial lending, self-storage, multifamily, land. The difference is how do you structure the deal? That's the difference.
Yeah.
So my focus, I've done commercial projects. I've built condominium developments from the ground up, shopping center from the ground up. But my focus since 2003 has been single family houses. Now, so let me give the distinction of how to use private money for single family houses versus commercial deals.
Yeah.
So on single family houses, everything we do is what's called a one-off. So what's a one-off? You have a private lender, maybe 2 or 3 private lenders that are funding residential, a single family house. And they're going to get a mortgage or a deed of trust. Here in North Carolina, it's a deed of trust. Texas, it's a deed of trust. Most states call it a mortgage. And so we're not borrowing money unsecured in the world of single family houses. They're going to get the same exact protection as a mortgage company or a bank that would be loaning money on a single family house.
Yeah.
They're going to be named on the insurance policy as the mortgagee, title policy as additional insured, et cetera. And so that's single family world. Now you come over to commercial, which are bigger deals, more money's needed. So on commercial, typically what's going to happen is you as the developer, the operator, the sponsor, whatever you want to call yourself, you're going to have a real estate attorney draw up a PPM, which stands for a private placement memorandum. That's going to cost, depending on the attorney, $15,000, $20,000 to draw up that legal document. So then you will go out and you will raise money from multiple people, and they're going to invest in your fund.
Yeah.
So you're going to create a fund for investors to invest in. So and the SEC regulates that, right?
Yep.
50, the different types of funds that you can put together. So you'll raise money for that fund. They invest in the fund, and then you as the operator use the money in that fund to then go do your commercial deal.
Yep.
With single family houses, the SEC is not regulating raising money for single family houses when you're doing it the way I described, because that's called an asset-backed debt.
Yeah.
Asset-backed debt. So the SEC is not regulating that. They're getting the same protection as a bank.
Yep.
The SEC does regulate raising money for a fund and those larger commercial projects.
Yeah. Yeah. So how do you decide? It would be my question actually, when private money is the right funding source?
Oh, that's a great question and an easy answer. Anytime the seller of a property requires all the cash.
Yeah.
Now, the reason I say that is because there's different ways you can buy properties. In the world of single family houses, you can buy them subject to the existing note, which means the owner of a single family house is willing to leave the mortgage in their name. And then you as the investor, you agree to make their payments and take title to the property, but the mortgage remains in the seller's name. Now, that's not an assumption.
Right.
An assumption loan means the lender's going to approve it.
Right.
In a buying subject to, the lender's got nothing to do with that transaction. In fact, it's already on line 204 on the HUD settlement statement. Your attorney doesn't have to make anything up. And you say, who would agree to sell their house subject to the existing note? A seller that wants debt relief fast.
Yeah.
But you don't need private money
Yeah.
to buy a house subject to the existing note. If a seller's going to sell creatively and be the bank and give you the investor owner financing, and they take back a note and you're going to pay them monthly payments, you don't need private money for that. Caleb, and I know in the real world, the high majority of all the deals, the seller requires all the cash. So when you need all cash, private money is your answer.
Yeah. That's a great way to put it, and put a distinction between when you need that. And how do you think that the private money can accelerate growth and scalability? Because I know a lot of people are new coming into it, right? They maybe have never done this before, but if they can see this as a path forward to scalability, how do you see that unfolding?
Oh, yeah. Private money allows you to scale for one big reason. When I was borrowing money from the bank, I had a limit to my line of credit.
Yeah.
I had a limit to the amount of money that the bank would loan me. In this world of private money, there is no limit to the amount of money that you can use. There's no limit to the number of private lenders that you can have. And so that's one big reason why I've never missed out on a real estate deal since 2009, is because there's more money. I've got more money than I can use.
Yeah.
And so it allows you to scale it to whatever level you want.
Yeah. So on a practical level, if say one of our listeners is looking to get into real estate investing, or they already have and only been using traditional lending, how do they connect with private lenders? Is that something that you do, or you connect them? How does that work? Because I know obviously people can look at their own circle. However, like you said earlier, a lot of people aren't familiar with private money and how it works.
That's right.
So,
None of my private lenders from my circle, my own network, had ever heard about it until I put on my teacher hat and shared it. There's three, in answer to your question, Caleb, there's three categories is where you find private lenders. Three categories. What are those three categories? The first category is where I have raised most of my money. And that is your existing, the first two categories is where I've raised my private money. The first category are your existing connections, right?
Yep.
Who's in your cell phone? Who's in your professional circle? Your current connections. And I promise you, if you're listening to this show, you know a lot more people than you think about and than you know about and remember. And I have a very simple process as to how you identify your top potential private lenders that are in your cell phone. So those are your existing people. The second category of where you find private lenders is what I call your expanded network. Your expanded network. So how do you grow? You're going to run out of your own connections sooner or later, right? Depending on how large your network is. So that will be exhausted sooner or later. And if you want to scale your business beyond that, then how do you expand your network very quickly? I got a long list of how to do that, but I'll give you a big one right now. It's called Business Networking International. I've gotten millions of dollars in private money by being active in Business Networking International. It's referred to as BNI. And BNI was founded by Ivan Meisner back in the 1980s. It's now worldwide. It's huge. And even though Morehead City, North Carolina, where I live, population 8,000 people, we started a BNI all the way back in the 2000s, I should say. And the way BNI works, it's not a civic organization. The way BNI works is you join your local chapter, and if you're in any kind of size city, you'll have multiple chapters to choose from. The purpose is to give your fellow members leads for business, and your fellow members give you leads for business. So that is a very quick way to blow up your network, because you're not joining BNI for the purpose of only perhaps doing business or getting private money from your fellow members. Who you want to know is who they know.
Right.
And they introduce you to their network. So, here in Morehead City, BNI has got 23 members.
Yeah.
That's 23 revolving doors of 23 other networks that you have access to. And there's many other ways to expand and blow up your network as well. The third category of where you find private lenders is what is called existing private lenders. These are individuals that are already loaning money out to real estate investors. How do you find them?
Yeah,
well, don't do it the way I started out doing it all the way back in 2009. I hired my real estate attorney, actually his paralegal, to search local public records at the courthouse looking for deeds of trust or mortgages that had individual names, not institutional names, that had lent money out on real estate. We only found a couple there within 90 days. I said, there's got to be an easier way. There are much easier and faster ways to get that information, one of which is self-directed IRA companies. Did you know over 70% of account holders at self-directed IRA companies, over 70% of them are private lenders. They want to be loaning money out.
Yeah.
But you know what? And they have networking events where you can network and meet these individuals. But here's a big distinction. When you meet existing private lenders, you're not putting on your teacher hat.
Right.
They already know what private money is, and they're already spoiled. They want 12%. They want 11%. I've been paying on my private lenders since 2009, 8% and no origination fees. And they love it. They love it.
Yeah.
Compared to what you can get in a 12-month certificate of deposit at the local bank.
Yeah.
So they haven't been spoiled. And you come along and offer 8%, they're going, wow, compared to less than 3% in the local bank now. But yeah, those are the three categories as to where you find private lenders.
Yeah.
So that begs the next question. And that is, how do you start sharing? How do conversations even start?
Yeah.
How do you bring that up? And it depends on what you got going on. If you and I are having a cup of coffee, Caleb, that conversation is going to be different than if I invite you to a luncheon with 20 other people and have my realtor there and my real estate attorney there and my CPA there, and I feed you lunch, and then I do a PowerPoint presentation and I teach you about private money. But most conversations are going to be one-on-one. So there are two different scripts, if you will. There's two different approaches that I practice and teach my coaching clients how to start conversations. One's called the direct method. The other is called, of course, you guessed, the indirect method. And the direct method utilizes what I call the magic question. The magic question is, quote unquote, do you have investment capital or in retirement funds not giving you a high rate of return safely and securely? Now, I'm only going to ask that question to somebody that I've got a strong relationship with. We trust each other. We like each other. If I ask that question to somebody I don't have that with, they're going to say, that's none of your business.
Right, right.
So that's only going to be, and obviously I'm not starting out a conversation like that's going to be in the midst of the conversation. I love to bring up the topic with what I call, did you know questions? I might be talking with you and I are having coffee or whatever, and I'll say something like, by the way, Caleb, did you know there's a way that investors can earn unlimited money per year tax-free? In all likelihood, you're not going to know the answer to that question.
Right.
Well, how can I earn unlimited money tax-free? And I say, what are you talking about? My follow-up question to that would be is, well, have you by chance heard of self-directed IRA companies? In all likelihood, if you're the average person, you never heard of that either.
Yeah.
So now that opens up the door for me to teach and share what are self-directed IRA companies. And then obviously in that conversation, I'm going to say, what are you investing in these days? And are you happy with what you're doing? You see, that conversation has only got one, I've only got one purpose. I've only got one goal. And that is to diagnose, do you have a problem?
Yeah.
That's the only thing that conversation is about. And if you tell me, yeah, I've got my investments over here in XYZ, and last year I earned 15%, I just diagnosed you don't have a problem, right? So I'm going to say, tell me about that investment, because I sure ain't getting 15%, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But if I'm diagnosing if they have a problem and they say, yeah, I'm getting 2.75% in a CD at the local bank, I'm going to say, oh my word, that's horrible.
Yeah.
I'm going to say, would you like to hear how you can earn 8%?
Yeah.
Instead of 2.75?
Yeah.
Now you just diagnosed they got a problem.
Yeah.
And here you come along with a possible solution.
Yeah.
So there's no selling.
Yeah.
There's no selling. There's no begging. I'm diagnosing, do you have a problem? Now, that's the direct method. That's the direct method. The end, isn't this interesting, Caleb? I love talking about this. So anyway, so then there's the indirect method. The indirect method utilizes a very powerful 3-word phrase. And here it is. I need your help. Now, how do we lead up to that powerful 3-word phrase? I need your help. Best way I can answer that is in the short story. So right after I learned about private money, put my program together, my opportunity together as to what I was going to share with people and offer them. And it was on a Wednesday night at church at Bible study. Carol Joy, my wife, and I, we got there to Bible study on Wednesday night, walked in the foyer. I was looking for a gentleman named Wayne. Wayne and I had known each other for years. And I walked up to Wayne and I said, Wayne, I'd like to visit with you for a few minutes confidentially after Bible study, if you got a few minutes. He said, sure. So we got together after Bible study down in the nursery. I shut the door, and here's exactly, this is the indirect method. Here's exactly what I said to Wayne. I said, Wayne, you know everybody in this town. Yeah. And he did. He was the original Zenith television dealer in Morehead City, North Carolina. Now, if you never heard of the Zenith television dealer, that means you're too young to remember life before Walmart came to town. You went to the Zenith dealer, you bought your TV, he financed your TV. He actually would come to your house and repair your TV instead of you throwing it in the trash and going back to Walmart and buying a new one for $279. So Wayne had put a TV in everybody's house in this area. I said, Wayne, you know everybody in this town. And I said, Wayne, I need your help. I said, Wayne, I've now opened up my real estate investing business by referral only, and I'm now paying insane high rates of returns to my investors. When you run across somebody that's complaining about the stock market, the volatility of the stock market, not getting any money in the local bank, would you refer them to me and I'll tell them about my opportunity? What do you think Wayne said? Wayne looked at me and says, now, Brother Jay, what you got going on there?
Yeah.
I said, well, what do you mean, Wayne? He says, you say you're paying insane rates of returns. What kind of returns are you paying? I said, well, that depends on the deal, but are you saying you might be interested, Wayne? Yeah. He said, I might be. Yeah. I said, why? I said, why is that? He said, we're losing money in the stock market and we're earning less than 3%. And that's what it was, like it is today in 2009 in the local bank. He said, what kind of rate are you paying? And I said, again, that depends on the deal. I said, what sounds high to you? He said, we're only earning less than 3%. He said, I don't know, maybe 5% sounds pretty good to me. I said, Wayne, I can't pay you 5%, but I can pay you 8%. He said, put me down for $250,000. And so that next afternoon, on Thursday afternoon, I went to Wayne and his wife's home right here on Country Club Road in Morehead City. And I got there Thursday afternoon, and I brought my complete program and opportunity and went over with them the checkpoints, the interest rate I pay, how your money's protected. I'm not borrowing unsecured funds, how you can get your money back early in case of an emergency. What's the paperwork that you get when we have a deal? And remember, don't forget this very important point. I didn't talk about a deal.
Right.
I didn't talk about a deal. I
Yeah.
just talked about the opportunity.
Yeah.
And by the end of that conversation, Caleb, that $250,000 became $500,000
Wow.
that they wanted to invest. And I said, I'll put your money to work for you just as soon as possible. So a couple of weeks went by, and Caleb, I'm now going to share the good news phone call script. I get my deals funded 100% of the time without pitching a deal. Caleb, let's say that you and I are friends, known each other for a while, and let's say that you were, hypothetically, that you were working for a company that you left, and you still got an old $150,000 401k over there in that retirement plan. You still got it there, you're not happy with it, and you're looking for something else. So let's assume I have already taught you, I've already shared with you the opportunity. Let's also assume I've introduced you to the self-directed IRA company that I recommend. And let's assume you've moved that $150,000 over to the self-directed IRA company, and you're waiting for the good news phone call.
Yeah.
So I call you up, you answer the phone, we have a little chit chat, and here's exactly what I say. I say, Caleb, I've got great news for you. I can now put your money to work. I've got a house under contract with an after repaired value of $200,000, and the funding required matches up to what you've got at the self-directed IRA company. The funding required for that deal is $150,000, and closing is going to be next Thursday. You'll need to wire your funds to my real estate attorney's trust account next Wednesday. I'm going to have my real estate attorney's paralegal email you the wiring instructions. That's the end of the conversation.
Yeah.
The most stupid thing I could say is, do you want to fund the deal? Of course you want to fund the deal.
Right.
There's three big reasons why Caleb here wants to fund my deal in this scenario. The first reason is, for goodness sakes, Caleb trusted me to move his money over to the self-directed IRA company. And so he's already done that.
Yeah.
The second reason Caleb here in this story wants to fund my deal is he knows I'm not going to bring a deal for him to fund that doesn't match the criteria that I've already taught him. Like, one thing I'm going to teach my private lender, Caleb, in this story is I'm not going to borrow more than 75% of the after repaired value. I didn't say 75% of the purchase price.
Right.
I always bring home a big check when I buy.
Yeah.
Who wants to get paid to buy properties?
Yep.
But did you hear that scenario? The after repaired value in that story was $200,000.
Yep.
I'm using small numbers for
Sure.
easy figuring.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to borrow more than $150,000. That's 75% of the after repaired value. Now, in that scenario, I'll buy that house for $100,000 because it needs rehab, and I'll bring home a $50,000 check when I buy. That's called excess cash to close. The third big reason Caleb wants to fund my deal is because he's not making any money
Yeah.
on that money until he gets it loaned out and invested.
Yeah.
So that's the good news phone call script.
That's awesome. This has been such a eye-opening conversation, a lot more detail that I think is going to be very helpful for our listeners. But as we wind down, people need to follow you on your podcast, but where else can people find you, and how can people reach out and get involved with what you do?
Sure. Three ways. One, you just mentioned, my podcast. So I'm now in my 8th year. I had over 800 guests
Wow.
on
Wow.
my podcast. And the name of the podcast is Raising Private Money. It's on all the platforms, wherever you love to listen to your podcast. Come on over and check that out. I've got 2 gifts to give your listeners, Caleb. One gift is a downloadable PDF, and I've put together an entire private money script collection, different private money scripts for different scenarios. And I want to give away the first script in that collection. It's called the Curiosity Opener. Back to what we were talking about. How do you start conversations with potential private lenders? It's called the Curiosity Opener, and you can download it for free at www.jconner.com/scripts. And that's plural, jconner.com/scripts.
Awesome.
Download that PDF. And then my other gift I'd like to offer your audience is my national best-selling book, which is called Where to Get the Money Now. Where to Get the Money Now. And the subtitle is How and Where to Get Money for Your Real Estate Deals Without Relying on Traditional or Hard Money Lenders. And it also comes with 2 tickets valued at $3,000 to my in-person private money conference.
Wow.
That I put on 3 times a year. And it's $20 on Amazon, but don't give Amazon $20. The book's free, just covers shipping. I'll autograph the book for you. I'll send it out to you express mail. And you can get the book at jayconner, JAYCONNER.com/book, and I'll rush it right out to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that generosity. I know that's going to be a great help to so many people. Appreciate your time, and thanks for being on the show.
Caleb, thank you so much for having me. God bless you.
You too. Everybody stay tuned for our next episode.
Are you feeling inspired by the knowledge you gained in this episode? Then head over to jayconner.com/moneyguide. That's JCONNER.com/moneyguide and download your free guide that shares 7 reasons why private money will skyrocket your real estate investing business right now. Again, that's jayconner.com/moneyguide to get your free guide. We'll see you next time on Raising Private Money with Jay Conner.